unawapenda ndio. Haya, then they kept quiet. Tukafika kwa that place called Flyover. They took the road towards, I think it goes to Thika. And it passes through some forest. Wakanyamaza, that road is rough. And those guys can drive very roughly. Nilikuwa nasikia pupupu unagonga gongwa tu. And you know now, since they are holding their shotguns here, ikitingika hivi unasikia ni kama you have been shot. So I'm saying my last prayers anyway. You don't know what is happening. And tukafika mahali kuna msitu na kuna stinging nettle. In Kikuyu we call it Lafai, alitoka hapo. Kaulizwa hapo ni sawa, kasema hapa ni sawa. Mimi nikasema now that is it. I'm done. At that point jamaa karudi akasema hebu niambie wewe uko na Twitter account? Nikamwambia ndio. Nani anakuandikia hiyo Twitter account? Nikasema ni mimi, I do it. Ni vitu gani unaandika hapo? Nikamwambia naandika zile vitu na ukota kutoka kwa group na vile Kenya kunaendelea, kama kuna shida naandika. Kwa hivyo wewe ndio unajua sana. Nikamwambia hapana, ukiangalia zile vitu nimeandika zote ni zile watu wengine wanasema. Na wewe unapenda serikali? I know I lied because I said yes. Because I don't love it.
To survive.
Yeah, I lied. I said yes. I said, wakasema, haya, twende. So we went down and they got onto the Mahiu Road and then we took off towards Narok. Now towards Narok, we got into a place, kuna mahali hakuna manyumba, but there are some thickets. They stopped there. That was the third time. And said, hapa ndio mwisho. So I didn't know whether ni mwisho ya safari ama ni mwisho yangu. Kasema hapa ni sawa kabisa. So I asked, mlikuwa mnataka nifanye aje? Because mimi sijaongea kitu mbaya. Mkiangalia vile niliongea pale kwa mazishi, nyamaza. Sisi tuko kazi. They said, keep quiet, we are doing our work. Kasema asante. Even bad things wakisema nasema asante. Then all of a sudden tena wakapinduka, and from that point towards Mahiu there was intense discussion between them and somebody. Ule alikuwa mbele ndio alikuwa anauliza wanasema kilo Charlie Bravo something, vitu kama hizo. I know it's some coded word and mostly used by police. Now having been a chair of security, I know that. And maybe other people they use. But now I'm convinced that hizi magari hazina namba, watu wako na guns, wamejihud na wanaongea kilo Charlie, and I saw what happened to the agency. Then I knew I was obviously with those kind of people who are molesting peace-loving Kenyans just to stifle democracy. And so they took off talking, very coded, extremely coded language. Na wakaja towards Nairobi, branched off. In fact, kuna mahali walipitia wrong side pale ndio waingie Southern Bypass. And they got into Southern Bypass. They started driving slowly. There was a conversation that was intense with the coded words. And then they said, unajua tunaweza kukua. Now, when they said this, and I knew that road goes towards Ngong Forest, I knew my life is over. Nikasema ndio, but hakuna kitu kibaya mimi nimefanya. Na hakuna mtu nimetusi. And so Tukaja tu hivyo, then they started speeding, and that conversation, finally how it ended along bypass was, yes sir, copied. The last word was, yes sir, copied. After copied, brakes, zikapigwa brakes, gari. I was alone. I never saw, I don't know how we lost the other one. But you know, I was told to face front. So sijui kama hii ingine inakuja ama ikuji, sijui, I'm only seeing up in between this guy and the driver. And therefore, along, when they said, yes sir, copied, wakapiga brakes, gari kasimama, they told me, toka umbwa wewe. And so I got out in the middle of nowhere. Mimi sikuwa na nyumba, sikuwa na nini. Nikajua sasa it's me and my God and prayer.
What time was it?
I can't tell time because they had actually, maybe I forgot to say, they had told me to switch off my phones. And I had switched them off. And I couldn't, because now you have been put somewhere, it's dark. You don't want to attract the attention of somebody, probably aona mwangaza ya simu. You want also to move in the dark somehow. And so I didn't. So they put me on the side going towards Langata. And I thought they wanted to shoot me. So the moment they moved, I crossed on to the other side. And I went kwa ditch. Nikapitia sasa hiyo kama ni mtaro. Walking and running and checking whether any vehicle is coming. I guess it was between 600 or 800 meters. I got onto the road that branches off from Karen. I started running towards Karen in the middle of the road. And that's where I met with one boda fellow. I almost, nilikuwa na karibu nimshikilia hivi. Na muomba tafadhali, shouting. But he stopped mbali. Nikamwambia ni wakora wananichapa. Nipatie lift, hata nitalipa. By the way, those guys never took anything from me. Hawakuchukua simu, hawakuchukua pesa, hawakuchukua anything. So he stopped and said, weka hapo nikufikisha hapa utauawa. And so I told him, drop me at the Great Corner. I knew I would get a taxi. And along the way, I think he saw it was easy. Nikamwambia nimedropiwa hapo na wakora, na nilijua hapo ni pabaya. Kilimani. Nikamwambia drop me there at Kilimani. So at Kilimani, I picked a cab, which took me home. Na nikamwambia kijana wangu, you go pay for me the taxi. At least we have evidence that is what has brought me. Okay. That is how it was.
Well done. Thank you. I guess that is very clear, and you can now see the intensity of a horrific harassment of Kenyans by state-sponsored goons. Of course. Mheshimiwa Patrick Makau, Mheshimiwa Mwanamule, we have Governor Waititu, we have Majority Leader, County Assembly Makueni, and some MCS also from like Irene Mulu from Machakos County. We have Deputy Chair Ann Kanyi of Wiper Democratic Movement. Of course, you all know by now, and Ndengo Njiru is actually a black bull, easily translated. Jude Jomo, Mheshimiwa. Where's Mheshimiwa Jude? He's right here. We also recognize Damari, Nicola, my daughter, Kiamba constituency. We have some MCAs from Kitui. That is Mercy there, but Mzee wa Bagusi, businessmen and professionals. Mzee Nyambane is actually Zakayo. Zakia. FJNC, Kamau.
This lady is Kameme.
Oh, Kameme.
And also, she was second for the women rep.
Thank you.
She lost marriage.
Oh, well done.
Former MC also.
Yeah, just mention MCA Kiambu. Karisho. Good. But of course, today we call each other Mwanaiya. In Kikamba means brother. A former MP for Limuru, Mheshimiwa Peter Mwadhi, part of the reason we are here, literally. So the subject matter is entitled State-Sponsored Terrorism and the Lack of Political Goodwill to Implement the NADCO report. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us here at this center. On Thursday, November 28th, instead of mourning the unexpected loss of their 23-year-old son, Erastus Duarte, a family and community were forced to flee and seek refuge owing to thugs. Several mourners, including Duarte's relatives, suffered injuries that required medical attention. Others were fortunate to escape the melee physically unscathed. As the dust settled, it was evident that these goons had one purpose in mind: to disrupt, to destroy, and prevent persons whom they felt were hostile to the Kenya Kwanza administration from interacting with mourners in Bibirone village, Limuru constituency, Kiambu County. To compound an already dire situation, area MCA Christopher Ireri and former Limuru MP Peter Mwadhi were abducted and unceremoniously bundled into Subarus by unidentified men before being abandoned near the southern bypass at around 11 p.m. That is for Peter Mwadhi. For Christopher, we gather is still in hospital in Kiambu, many kilometers away from Bibirone village. By the way, these were by hooded men. Fully armed with walkie-talkies. I think you hear the testimony of Mheshimiwa Mwadhi. Despite the statements from both the Inspector General of the National Police Service, Mr. Douglas Kanja, and the Director of the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, DCI, Mr. Mohammed Amin, that the chaos was due to, quote unquote, a lack of advanced intelligence, and that Honorable Mwadhi and Honorable Ireri were not in their custody. Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence is irrefutable. This was a state-sponsored attack and abductions. Honorable Mwadhi is here with us today, and Honorable Ireri is in hospital in Kiambu. They will tell the country their harrowing night of terror with a state-sponsored abduction squad. The Subaru boys. We condemn in the strongest terms possible this state-sponsored terrorism against its own citizens. We are reminded of the words of German pastor Martin Niemöller, very famous. He famously said, and I quote, "First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me. And there was no one left to speak for me. End of quote. So Kenyans, that's exactly where we are. If we don't speak out, we will suffer the consequences. Ladies and gentlemen, a terrorist attack on one Kenyan is an attack on all of us, regardless of race, ethnic community, and political persuasion. An abduction of one of us is an affront to all who believe in a free and democratic society. We therefore call upon all Kenyans, irrespective of political persuasion, to call out this rogue regime and in one accord say, no, no more state-sponsored terrorism. Fellow Kenyans, we can now attest to the power of our combined protest voices against poor governance and corruption. Kenyans from all walks of life protested peacefully in the courts, on social media, and in print and broadcast media. The group's opaque, non-competitive, and secretive dues to take over Jomo Kenyatta International Airport JKIA and the Kenya Electricity Transmission Company, KETRACO. It was the U.S. Department of Justice's indictment of Andani for violations of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, a U.S. anti-bribery law, that finally forced Mr. Ruto to concede and purport to cancel the Andani Group deals in the transport and the health sectors on Thursday, November 21, during the State of the Nation address. Whether or not Mr. Ruto's embarrassing concession was due to foreign intervention, it is clear that he did not listen to his fellow Kenyans, as he later claimed. What is evident and should be clear to Mr. Ruto and his government is that the voices of the people are and will continue to be the most important, as stated plainly under Article 1 of Kenya's Constitution 2010. While we, the People's Loyal Opposition, acknowledge, encourage, and respect people's voices, the victory is by no means complete. The opaqueness in the purported cancellation of the JKI and KETRACO deals needs to be examined. In addition, the Adani connection, the Social Health Authority, SHA, and Social Health Insurance Fund, SHIF, the Adani needs to be severed immediately. ladies and gentlemen, co-chair of the dialogue process, I can attest that we negotiated in good faith. This regime has demonstrated time and again that they are not interested in justice or in the interests of Kenyans. Since the tabling of the report in Parliament almost a year ago, on December 7th, 2023, the NADCO agreement has not been implemented. The few concessions on the cost of living have not even been honored. The matters relating to electoral justice have not been implemented, including evaluation of the 2022 election outcomes. The constitutional and legal reforms to ensure credible elections are still pending. Aggression against Jubilee, because we also had that as a very important agenda item. That's not contained in my statement here. But that was a very important agenda, integrity and commitment to multi-party democracy. And by that we meant that this state-sponsored aggression on Jubilee Party had also to stop. We now know there's even, again, state-sponsored appeal to the higher courts. The Kenya Kwanza regime is clawing back and putting the country on a dangerous trajectory. They are determined to violate the NADCO agreement and the proposed constitutional and legal instruments agreed. Of particular concern are the constitutional timelines for boundary delimitation and the reconstitution of the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission, IEBC. The regime is already breaching the Constitution by failing to meet constitutional deadlines for boundary delimitation. We are already facing, ladies and gentlemen, a constitutional crisis. And I saw the cry by the management of the IEBC saying they're seeking an advisory for the Supreme Court. Well, they should just tell Mr. Ruto to implement NADCO report. On IEBC, the regime is not interested in the reconstitution of a credible commission. Through sponsored court cases, the process of setting up the panel has been frustrated. We have a simple question for the judiciary, which, as we say, the last line of defense for democracy. Did the Constitution envisage a situation where the commissioners of the IEBC are not in office? Did the framers of our Constitution contemplate a situation where the courts can allow for a dysfunctional commission? The unpopular regime does not want Kenyans to exercise their sovereign authority by electing leaders through by-elections and referendums, recalling unpopular elected officials or members, and properly preparing for the 2027 elections. Kenya Kwanza is preparing to undermine the people's sovereign authority and manipulate the next election. We will, of course, not allow them. The bill in Senate to stop, for example, the live streaming of results is one way of stealing elections, the coming elections. We will not allow them. In 2024, as the country's position deteriorated, Kenya's violent youth, headed by Generation Z, returned to the streets to seek justice for Kenyans. They were confronted with severe force as of 2023. In reality, there have been orders of abduction and extrajudicial killings following the Gen Z revolution. We want to tell the Gen Z and the Gen Wote that we will continue to stand with them against this state-sponsored violence and impunity. We are still unearthing evidence of infractions, including those that contravene international law. The regime cannot understand the just demands of Kenyans cannot be wished away. As the lives of Kenyans become intolerable and precarious, we continue to demand justice. The next Mandamanos will resolve Kenya's problems once and for all. Finally, we want to warn the Kenya Kwanza regime in the clearest possible terms. We will not allow A, the balkanization of our nation. B, we will never again allow the rigging of elections. And C, we will continue to resist against oppression, come what may. Thank you very much, and may God bless our country, Kenya. Asanteni. Kama kuna swali, but probably before you ask, maybe give opportunity to Mheshimiwa Peter Mwavi. They are actually bought with taxpayers' money. We have said time and again that these are goons sponsored by the state, using walkie-talkies. No amount of denial by the Inspector General and the DCI will convince Kenyans that this is not the case. And I want to challenge Mr. Kanja. I have respect for him, that he should stand and actually, if he's in charge, because he's also a member of National Police Service Directorate, to say no and dismantle this criminal crowd, because international community is watching. We must tell them, Kenya is not an island.